Okay, hopefully you guys can hear me, and I hope you guys are staying safe and doing well. And welcome to Econ 228. So I don't know if you guys have used the WebEx software before, or the WebEx feature, but it's pretty easy to use. And I think you'll get the hang of it real quick, because I'm sure you've used Zoom over the last few months. But it's very similar to Zoom, and I'm pretty familiar with it over the last few months. And so normally I have the chat feature open. You can see it over here where there's a few texts already. And so I'll have the chat feature open for all the classes. And if you want to say something, you really have two options. You can either turn your sound on. If you have a longer question, you can ask your question with the sound on, or just turn your sound on. Or you can post a comment or question to the chat feature, and I'll check that routinely as well. So if you need to say something, just turn your audio on and go ahead and say your question. Or if you have a shorter question or comment, just post it to the chat. Okay, so I think most people have already joined the meeting. All right, and so I think the first thing we'll do is kind of look at the Blackboard page and go over the syllabus when we get to that, and kind of go over the general things before we start doing the class. All right, so you can see the course Blackboard page. This is the same one you have, and if there's any problems getting onto Blackboard or anything like that, let me know. So yeah, I think the first thing we'll do is go over the syllabus. Go on the Blackboard page. Under the syllabus section, you can go there. Okay, and also all of the WebEx recordings of the WebEx meetings for this class, I'm recording them, including this one. And so they're all going to be available on my YouTube channel. And so after the class is done later tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll post this lecture. And all the lectures after the fact I'll post on my YouTube page. So if you missed something or need to hear something again or go over one of the problems, all the videos that we do will be available on YouTube to watch at your convenience. Okay, so let's look at the syllabus, which is on the syllabus section here, and this is the updated syllabus, and this is the same thing I sent you guys via email. Okay, so I just posted a few more useful links under the syllabus section, and you've probably seen this link, but this is constantly updated by the university. So you can check this for any updates on the coronavirus situation, and this is updated not daily, but pretty regularly by the university. Okay, and this one is updated pretty often as well by the university. So if you have any special considerations that you need accommodations for, you can find anything you need here, and let me know if you need anything or any special timing situations or whatever from my end. But all the accessibility services that you need or want to find out about are here. And again, please contact me if you need me to work around any of your situations. Okay, so let's go ahead and start going through the syllabus. And again, if you have any questions or anything so far, you can go ahead and turn your sound on and ask your question, or you can post anything in the chat, and I'll look at the chat feature throughout the class. Okay, so this is Econ 228, which is Economic Theories and Issues. And I'm usually assuming that most students have not taken economics at the college level before, and so I'll kind of start from scratch and we'll cover the basics of economics. So there's no prerequisites to take this course, and we'll kind of cover all the main, basic highlights and information of economics. And so I'll assume that your knowledge of economics is minimal, and we'll kind of start from scratch. All right, this is my full name, James Joseph Hoffman. I usually go by Jake, and you're welcome to call me that. That's usually how I find my emails and correspondence. This is my cell number in case you need to reach me. If there's any kind of emergency, you can use my cell number. I'm usually pretty good or really good at responding to email. So I'd say, unless it's an emergency situation or you have to get a hold of me, send an email first. And I'm pretty good at checking emails. I check emails all throughout the day. But you have both my cell number and my email address to communicate with me. Okay, so let's go over the course. You guys can read that. The course outcomes, you can look at that a little later. Okay, so the textbook that I've kind of structured the class around is this Essentials of Economics, I believe the 4th edition, which is the newest one. Let me show you what it looks like here. Okay, so I don't know if you could see that very well, but that was the version I have of the textbook. I'm assuming a lot of you don't have the textbook already, and it's kind of, we're not going to go through every single thing in the textbook, and I've prepared study guides and homework assignments and lots of material that'll kind of summarize or present the information that I think is most important. And so I've seen students do well without the textbook in this course, but it certainly cannot help or cannot hurt if you have it. And so if you want more information on all the topics and kind of want to read along as we go through the chapters, then I'd recommend getting the textbook, but it's not 100% absolutely required to do well in this course. And so if you have a textbook or want to read along and kind of keep up on all the reading material, then that'd be great. I'd recommend it. But if you don't have a textbook, and I don't know how much it is or how much it is to rent, I give you a lot of information in terms of study guides and lectures and homework assignments. And I think you can still do well without the textbook, but it can't hurt to have it. So let me know if you have any questions about should you purchase the textbook or not. I don't know exactly how much it is. I know it's the newest edition. I think you can rent it, but I'm not sure. Do any of you have the textbook right now?
No.
I actually ended up digitally renting the book.
Oh, okay. You can do that. All right. That works. Okay, that's good. So some of you do have it. Okay,
I got a
good.
PDF online.
Oh, okay. I couldn't find it. Which one it is? Which edition?
Whatever, the fourth one, yeah.
Oh, you found the fourth one? Just the second?
Yeah. Oh, no, I wasn't for free. Just,
okay.
Yeah, I think it was like $12 on Amazon.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, now they charge per month? Okay. Yeah, so, if you have it, it'll help you kind of keep up with the materials we're going to go through. We're going to use the study guides, we're going to use the chapters as kind of a guideline, and I kind of picked the main things and the main problems and adapt a few things. And so if you have it, you can see the chapters coincide with what we'll be going along. If you don't have it, kind of explore your options and see what you want to do. It's usually easier for students to share when everything is not online, but I recommend communicating with each other and trying to see what your best options for the textbook are. But let me know if you have questions about which textbook to get and so on. But yeah, you don't need it right this second, but it can't hurt to have it. Okay, so that's the textbook I'll be using, but it's kind of up to you if you want to buy it and use it. Okay, so the chapters are based on the textbook, and so I kind of picked out the main problems. Okay, so there's a link to. Okay, is that it's $12 to rent for the semester or per month?
To rent, and for the semester, you get to keep it till March 2nd.
Oh, for $12?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems like a good deal. So if you guys can do that, I mean, $12 is definitely better than what you can pay for the full version of the bookstore. So yeah, I'd recommend doing that. So thank you. Yeah, you don't need like the special features or the computer software that goes with it. So if you can do that $12 option, that seems like a pretty doable. I mean, that's like 2 Starbucks. So. There you go. You guys, yeah. Okay, so let's go through the rest of the syllabus here. Okay, so I kind of broke down the main chapters in the textbook that I want to go through, and we're not going to go through all the chapters in all detail, but I picked out the main things and models that I think are most important and helpful to kind of get an understanding of economics. And so we're normally going to do like a chapter a day. Some days, including today, I put 2 chapters in one day, and that's only because if some of the chapters are shorter, I kind of condense them. Okay, and so today the goal is to do chapters 1 and 2. And we're not going to do, again, we're not going to do everything in all the chapters, but I have study guides, which I'll show you, and I have some homework assignments. And usually, or kind of how the class will work is there'll be a homework assignment due the following week, and so you'll have something due, and they won't be too long, but you'll have something due every week. Obviously not today, but starting next Wednesday, you'll have a couple homework assignments due, and this course outline and schedule shows you the schedule for that. Okay, so assuming we get to chapters 1 and 2, the homework will be due next Wednesday, and then so on. So the date here you see is the due date, so nothing's due obviously today, and your first assignments are due in a week from today. So we'll try to stick to the schedule, assuming we don't get behind. Okay, so does someone have a question there? All right, so we'll do the chapter, and then the homework will be due the next week, and I'll show you what the homework assignment's going to look like and where to send those in. And we're going to have 3 exams, which are basically, they're all take-home exams. Nothing is going to be timed. There's not going to be any time constraints or sit-down exams. And I usually break the class into like thirds. And so the first third, or the main portions of the first third of the course, will be on the first exam, which is a take-home, and so it's really just like a bigger homework assignment. So nothing really like a true exam based on the remote or online version. So just think of the exams as like a bigger homework assignment. Okay, so we're going to have either homework due or an exam when we get to that, and this will show you the structure or the schedule that we're going to try to use. Okay, so the first couple chapters are kind of intro. The second middle portion is kind of microeconomics, and then the last, I'd say 6 chapters are macroeconomics, and so we're going to cover kind of intro stuff, then microeconomics and macroeconomics, and you get have a nice overview of all the things you should learn in just an intro to economics course. Okay, and here's the WebEx being scheduled. So this is the same as what you saw when you signed up for the time slot of the course. The class officially goes from 6:50 to 10. I don't think we might go a little later, but I want to keep the class from about 6:50 to 9 o'clock, like I set up the WebEx meeting. And so that should be enough time if we don't take any breaks to get through everything. And so I don't think we're going to go till 10 o'clock, if that's okay with you guys. And so, 6:50 to 9 o'clock is plenty of time to do an online meeting. And so the official time is 6:50 to 10, but I set up the meeting to go till 9 o'clock, and that's what I'll try to shoot for. So just prepare to be here from each of those Wednesdays from 6:50 to 9 o'clock. Okay, then down here is the grading, and also so the WebEx meetings go for all the 15 weeks of the semester. So I know one of the November Wednesdays is the day before Thanksgiving, and usually that's a bigger issue when we're on campus, but I don't think it'll be that. I think we can still do the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because you can do the class from anywhere. And so even if you have to travel for Thanksgiving, you can probably still do the meeting the night before. And I know I'll be traveling, but I can still do the meeting remotely. And so we'll plan on having our meeting that Wednesday so we don't fall behind. But if you have any issues, just let me know. And if you have to miss that day, everything will be on YouTube so you can catch up like that. Okay, and I think the week of December 9th is the last week of the semester, and then normally the next week is finals week. We're not going to have a true, in-class final or timed exam, and so we'll just go through the 15 weeks, and then the final will be due during finals week, but we won't have a meeting during finals week. So just whenever you finish the final, you're done with the course. So you can see that our last meeting is the 15th. Our last meeting is the 9th. And then the finals due the next Wednesday. And so whenever you get that final done, that's the end of the course. And so you don't have to worry about scheduling like a time concept during finals, but the final will be due that Wednesday of a normal finals week. Okay, so grading, I'm not going to take attendance every time. I'm just going to put this here at 5% because, the university wants me to keep track of attendance. And so if people stop or if people don't come to the WebEx lectures, at some point I might start taking attendance or if you fall behind on the assignments. But 5% is just, I want to give you guys all 5% for attendance. And so I'm assuming you guys, almost everyone's here already right now, so I think there's 14 students, and it looks like there's 13 people signed in right now, so that's a pretty good turnout already for day one. And so I'm just going to, I'll try to give you guys the 5% for attendance, but I'll worry about that later if people stop or don't come to class. Okay, so the weekly homework assignments will probably take up the bulk of your time, even though it won't be too bad. I think because this is the most of your work, I'll count all the homeworks. I think there's one for each chapter, so I think that's 16 homework. And so that'll be about half your grade, 50%. Okay, and then each of the exams, just think of those as kind of like a bigger homework assignment. And each of those will be 15%. And again, those are not timed. Those are not. You have a week to do it just like a homework assignment, but it's a little more in depth. Okay, so the chapter homeworks, which I think since there's 16, will be 50%, and then the 3 exams will be 15% each, and that will make up pretty much all of your assignments for the semester. Okay, and then the grading policy is the standard policy by the university. Yeah. Okay, so I'll go through the rest of the Blackboard page and kind of where to turn in the assignments and so on. But and then this is the schedule that I'll try to keep. And so check this. So these are all the meetings, which are every Wednesday at the same time. Okay, but make sure you check which homeworks are due. And it's always going to be the chapters we cover in the previous lecture, and then the homework assignment will be due the next week, the next Wednesday. Okay, so any questions on just the logistics or anything in the syllabus I covered so far? Okay, so let's go through the rest of the Blackboard page, and then we'll start doing the material for today, which are Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Okay, so if you go to the discussion section on the course Blackboard page, this is where I want you guys to turn in the homework assignments. So you're just going to post your answer sheet to the homeworks here. So I set up a section for each homework, which are chapters 1 through 16. And chapter 16 comes in the middle. It's kind of a weird, so we'll cover chapters 1 through 9, then 16, and then 10 through 15, like that. And that's because the 10 through 15 is the macroeconomics, so we'll do that last. So assuming we get through everything today, your homeworks for next week will be chapter 1 and chapter 2. And to finish your homework, you just go to the appropriate section, the chapter 1 homework. Alright, you click on create thread and then you can add an attachment, and usually what I like the students to do is do their homework as a Word document or a PDF if you can do that. So those are the preferred types of turning your homework. Okay, and so it shouldn't take you too long to figure out how to do that. But if you have any problems or you can't do a Word or a PDF file, let me know. But usually most students can do either a Word document or a PDF, whichever is your preference, is fine with me. Okay, so all the homework's still here. If you scroll down, you'll see the study guide section. Okay, and so as the weeks come across, I'll put up a study guide that we'll go through during the lecture for each of the chapters. So today we're going to cover chapter 1 and 2. And so those are there. And then the homework assignments, which we'll get to after the study guides. Okay, then here are the PowerPoints that go along with the chapters. And then the homework assignments will be in this section. We got homework chapters 1 and 2, and I'll cover those a little bit later after we do the chapters. Okay, and then I'll post my solutions to the homework here after they're due. And then the resources or the material for all the midterms will go here when we get to that. So for midterm 1, midterm 2, and the final, all the materials will be here. And then the last thing, this is where you'll find the videos after the class. Okay, so if you go to my YouTube page and you just go to the section for Econ 228, alright, so I'll just code it by Econ 228 under that playlist, and then it'll be by the date. So today's date will be the first one, and then after each meeting, either tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll post up the lecture that we're doing right now. So all the WebEx meetings will be posted on YouTube. So if you want to go over like a practice problem again or see something again, you can do that there. Or if you miss part of the lecture, you can see it after the lecture is done. Okay, so what I want to do today is kind of the intro to economics stuff, which is chapters 1 and chapter 2. And so we'll look at the study guides, we'll look at some of the PowerPoint, and then after that, I'll show you the homework assignments for the chapters. So before we start today's material, chapters 1 and 2, any questions on anything we've covered so far, just anything in the syllabus, where to turn to your homework, or just any general questions so far? Okay, let's start with today's material, which is kind of an intro to economics, which will be chapter 1 and chapter 2. All right, so if you click on the study guides, and let's start with the chapter 1. You can open this up. Okay, so this is what I kind of prepared a summary of the key things I want to teach you guys from each of the chapters. And so I normally have for the chapters I have the key concepts. Normally I would have some videos I would show in the classroom, but it's probably not the best use of our time to watch videos remotely. So I'll point you to the videos, but I'll have a bunch of optional videos that give you more material on what we cover that day or that chapter. All right, and then we'll go through some examples together, and you'll have my solutions to those examples, and that'll help you prepare for the homework assignments that I designed for each chapter. Okay, so we'll go through the chapter 1 study guide first, and let me also open up the PowerPoint for chapter 1 because we'll kind of go back and forth between the two. Okay, so under the PowerPoint section, you can open up the chapter 1 PowerPoint. Okay, so here we go. Let's just go through kind of the introductory things of economics, and then we'll start looking at a few simple models. And yeah. Okay, so these are the key concepts that I want you guys to learn from chapter 1. All right, so first, just to start from the beginning, just the textbook definition of economics. And so it's a social science that looks at how individuals, institutions, and society make choices under conditions of scarcity. So you're making decisions, or you're making choices by a limited, you have limited resources and you have scarcity, and you got to try to optimize based on what you have available and what you can achieve. So it's a social science looking at that kind of decision making. All right, so first thing you usually talk about in economics, or one of the first economic concepts is opportunity cost. And so that is the value of a good, service, or time foregone to obtain something else. So this is kind of what I like to think of this as. It's the second best thing you would have done that you had to give up to make the decision. Okay, so this applies to any decision or business decision or anything like that. And so you probably heard of opportunity cost before, but let me give you an example, then I'll try to see that you guys understand it. Okay, so like if you're going to open up a business, let's say you're going to open up, like a pizzeria or something like that. If you're opening up a pizzeria, then if you open up, that was the decision you made as a business. But your second best option was probably the thing you could have done second best. Instead of opening up a pizzeria, like you could have opened up an Italian restaurant, you could have opened up a sandwich shop, you could have sold the resources for cash. And so there's always a second best option in which you give up, and that goes for any big business decision or just decisions in everyday life. So let me post a question here. Okay, so someone or one or more of you, can you post what the opportunity cost of coming to this lecture is? So what's the opportunity cost of being here on this WebEx lecture?
Wouldn't that technically just be the time that we're using to be at this lecture?
Well, it would be, but what would you use the time for? Like, the key is that it'll be different for everybody, but what's the next best option? Like, if you didn't come here, what would you do instead?
You could be working, so the cost is money.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So if that's the thing you would do instead, then that's your opportunity cost. And then for everyone's going to be different. So it could be, spending time with your kids. It could be putting in work for another class. It could be doing work for your job the next day. It could be fixing your car. So whatever you would choose as a second best option is the opportunity cost you gave up to come here or to be here. Okay, so I think we get the idea, but that concept will come up a lot in most of the models of economics, and we'll look at some of that today, but I think we get the idea. And it's kind of a simple concept, but it's very important because you're always giving up something in every decision you make in an economic sense. Okay, so the next thing is just the big distinction between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Okay, and let's look at slide 8 real quick. We're going to cover the two basic. Today's lecture is basically more of an introduction to economics. So we're going to look at what the two types are, and then when we start doing the chapters, we'll do the microeconomics first, and then the macroeconomics in chapters, I think, 10 through 15. But for now, I just want you guys to understand the difference between the two. So Okay, so if you look at slide 8 in the chapter 1 PowerPoint, this is just a kind of a summary of the two types. So there's two distinct fields of economics, micro and macro. And so some researchers or economics kind of just focus on one. But in an intro to economics course, I want you guys to understand kind of the distinction. So you're probably more familiar with macroeconomics because those are the big news stories. But microeconomics is the study of individual units that make up the economy. And so this is like micro is looking at individual decisions, household decisions, business decisions. And so if it's an individual firm or decision maker, that's a microeconomic decision. Okay, whereas macro is a study of the economy as a whole or the aggregate economy. And so if you're looking at the entire U.S. or the entire economy, that's a macroeconomic distinction. And so when we look at things like the U.S. unemployment rate or the U.S. Economic growth or things like that, those are inflation, interest rates. Those are things that make up the whole economy. And so if it's looking at the economy as an aggregate or as a whole, that's macro. And if you're looking at individual decision makers and units and firms, that's micro. Okay, so those are kind of the main distinctions to learn first. Just what economics is, what the concept of opportunity cost is, and then the distinction between micro and macro. And the rest of chapter 1 is I kind of picked out the two main models or problems we're going to look at first. And so the first one is going to be the production possibilities model. Okay, so let's look at first slides 14 to 16, and then we'll talk about this concept and do some practice problems for this. Okay, so this will help us understand opportunity cost in the macroeconomic sense and what a country or an economy gives up to produce something else. And then later in chapter 16, we'll revisit this model and look at gains from trade and how two economies or two countries can gain by trading with each other. Okay, all right. So I think everyone is here right now. So here we go. So these are the assumptions of the model. This production possibilities model. Okay, so we're assuming full employment. We're assuming that that's obviously not 100% accurate, but the assumption is the economy is fully employed to look at this model. The assumption is that the resources are fixed. And there's fixed technology, and we're going to look at a two-good economy. So obviously, countries or economies produce way more than two goods, but if you understand the opportunity cost and the concept of just a two-good model, then you can apply that logic to more than two goods. Okay, so here's an example, and we'll look at this a few more times, but just the basic idea is the country can produce different production points of two goods. So if this were the case, where the economy of the country is only producing pizza and industrial robots, it can possibly produce different combinations of each. And the combinations here are, point A is the country could produce no pizza and 10 robots. The other extreme is they can produce, it helps to see this on a graph, but the other extreme is 4 pizzas and 0 robots, and these are all the points on the production possibilities table or curve in which the country could fully produce. So we'll see that if the country wants to produce more of one good, it must give up some of the other goods. And so if you put this on a graph on the next slide here, so all of the points A, B, C, D, E are when the economy is maximizing its potential. So those are all when if it's using all its resources 100% efficient, any of those points are possible. Okay, so the points below the curve are attainable, but that would be inefficient. And then anything beyond the curve is currently unattainable. Okay, so any of those points, A, B, C, D, E, or any point on that curve, the economy of the country is using all of its resources 100% efficient. And so you see that as you go from A to B, if you want to produce more pizza, you have to give up some robots. And if you go the other way, if you want to produce more robots, you have to give up some pizza. All right, and then we'll do some examples, but obviously the opportunity cost of what you produce is what you gave up of the other good. Okay, so a few more slides on the production possibilities curve, and then we'll look at an example in a minute. All right, so if you look at slides 19 to 22, that'll cover the rest of the production possibilities curve material. Okay, so what we'll see here is like if something changes or if the economy is not efficient, then you can represent that in the model. So if you have unemployment, okay, that would represent a point below the curve because you're not using one of your resources efficiently, in particular labor. Okay, so if there's any unemployment, you can represent that by putting a point inside the curve. And then if more people become employed or you move toward full employment, you can move toward, or if you're fully employed, you can achieve the production possibilities curve. Okay, so if you have any kind of growth, economic growth, there's more resources. Another example is improved resource quality, or if you have a technological advance, some kind of boom in technology. Any of those things would boost the curve out, and so in the next couple slides, I'll show you an increase or a kind of an economic growth in this model, and it's kind of an outward shift or a rightward shift of the previous curve. Okay, so if the economy has growth or economic growth by any of those factors, and the way you would show growth or an increase in economic growth is like this. So the lower curve was the previous curve, and then economic growth is represented by a rightward shift where you can attain higher combinations of all the resources. So this newer curve, like A, B prime, A prime, B prime, C prime, that represents economic growth in which the economy can now achieve higher levels of production alternatives. Okay, so those are for the production possibilities curve or model. Those are the basic bullet points or ideas, and we'll look at some examples, and you'll see when we go through the examples in the homework. And the last concept I want you guys to learn from chapter 1 is kind of intro to budget lines. And I think this will be the homework assignment, or there'll be a problem from this concept on the chapter 1 homework. So let's look at slides 9 through 10. Okay, so the basic economic model for the macroeconomy was the production possibilities curve we just looked at. And this is kind of the introductory one for the individual, or kind of a individual decision-making process with budgets. And so the idea here is that you choose between two goods based on the budget you have unless something changes. And even though we're just looking at two goods, it's simplified, but you can apply this logic to more than one good. But if you understand the two, then you get the opportunity cost concept and the aspect of budget lines. Okay, so consumers or individuals have limited income based on budgets. They have unlimited wants, but they have to choose a point on the budget line. And the budget line is going to show us the attainable and unattainable options for the individual decision maker. Okay, for the individual decision maker, we'll understand the opportunity cost in terms of what you give up. If you want to consume more of one good, you have to give up some of the other. Okay, and depending on what the situation is, we'll see how the consumer or individual can make the best choices possible given their budget and the prices of the goods. Okay, or if we have changes in income or a change in the price, you can simply represent that in this two-good model as well. Okay, so this concept of budget lines looks like this. So this is some individual, and here we're applying two goods, which looks like DVDs. This obviously that wouldn't be a very good example anymore, but DVDs and paperback books. So this is an example from like 1990. So the idea here is that these are, so the price of books is $10, and the price of movies is $20. And what this line represents is all the combinations where you could consume or exhaust all of your budget and consume different combinations of the goods. So this axis is DVDs, and this axis is books, and every point on this blue line represents the points where you use all of your budget and consume different combinations of the two goods. So the idea here is that if there's no changes, to consume more of one good, like if you want to consume more books, you have to give up some DVDs. And if you want to consume more DVDs, you have to give up some books. So by looking at these two models, the production possibilities curve and the budget lines, we'll see how you can apply the opportunity cost concept to both the whole macroeconomy and then by individual decision making. Okay, so let's look at some examples of these two models that I showed you, and then that'll help us understand kind of what I want you guys to take away from these two introductory models. Okay, so we're not going to watch them here, but I have some optional videos. And so this first one is just a nice introduction to economics video if you want to look at that. And they're all pretty short, they're like 5 or 10 minutes. This is another video on opportunity cost, and I'll ask you to look at, give you some more examples and information on the production possibilities frontier, which is the same as the production possibilities model. So I recommend watching those 4 quick videos to reinforce some of the concepts when you get some time to do that. But for now, let's look at some examples. Okay, so here we go, number 1. So there's just some simple questions first, then we'll look at the production possibilities curve, and then we'll look at example of the budget line. Okay, so number 1, which of the following decisions would entail the greater opportunity cost, either allocating a square block in the heart of New York City for a surface parking lot, or allocating a square block in the edge of a typical suburb for such a lot. So which one comes with the bigger opportunity cost? So this is probably changing a little bit in the current economy, given that real estate in downtown areas has lost a little bit of value, but it still applies here, where it's basically remember the opportunity cost is what you give up. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing it for. The idea here is that what you give up in the New York parking lot is worth more than what you give up in the suburb. Okay, so allocating a square block in the heart of New York City would entail the greater opportunity cost because the second best option, whatever you give up, is more valuable than what you give up as a second best option in the suburb. So whether your second best option is a new housing unit, a new restaurant, whatever, it's valued more, and so therefore the opportunity cost of that second best option is higher. Okay, number 2, just a few statements on distinguishing between micro and macro. Okay, so let's indicate whether each of the following applies to micro or macro. Okay, so A, the unemployment rate in the U.S. was 5.1% in September 2015. So that's for the economy as a whole. That's looking at the whole unemployment rate for the U.S. So that's macroeconomics. B, a U.S. software firm discharged 15 workers last month and transferred the work to India. So that's an individual firm, right? So if an individual firm is making decisions, that's microeconomics. C, this one's a little tricky, but C is an unexpected freeze in Central Florida reduced the citrus crop and caused the price of oranges to rise. And so this one's micro, and that's only because it relates to a specific commodity. If all prices rose, that would be inflation. That would be macroeconomics if inflation changed. But because it's only focusing on one particular product, it's a microeconomic statement. D, U.S. output adjusted for inflation grew by 2.4% in 2014. So that's macroeconomics because that's looking at inflation for the whole economy. And last week, Wells Fargo lowered its interest rate on business loans by 0.5 percentage point. That's one firm's decision, one bank's decision, so that's microeconomics. And then F, the consumer price index, the CPI, rose by 0.2% from August 2015 to August 2016. So that's looking at prices or inflation for the whole economy, and that is macroeconomics. Okay, so that's just we'll cover all of these things in more detail, but that was just a highlight of how you distinguish, or how you categorize one thing, or one concept as micro and the other one as macro. Okay, so example number 3 looks at a few concepts on the production possibilities curve example. So explain how, if at all, each of the following events affects the location of a country's production possibilities curve. So what happens to the curve? Does it increase or decrease or not change? Okay, so A, the quality of education increases. Alright, so that essentially makes the workers more productive, so that's the increase in what we call human capital. So if the workers become more productive by more education, that would increase the possibilities of this economy. And so increase in education, increase in human capital would shift the curve to the right, or the production possibilities curve would increase or shift rightward. Okay, B, this one's a little tricky, but let me explain. The number of unemployed workers increases. So this means that we now have more people unemployed, and here's the answer. The production possibilities curve would not change. Alright, and so do we see why that's the case? Because what we can attain, or what the possibility is not changed. But what does change is where the country is. And so it's basically like, let me pull up the curve again. Alright, so all of the points here in this example are we're using all the resources efficiently. But if we have unemployment, this curve is not going to change, but we'll be at a point inside the curve, like right here. So unemployment represents a production alternative inside the curve, but the curve itself doesn't change.
I have a question, Professor.
Yeah.
If the number of unemployed workers increase, would production possibly curve change?
If the number of unemployed workers decrease?
Yeah.
No, because, so let me go back to so you can explain it both ways if you go back to the curve. So here's the possibility curve. Okay, so to be on the curve, you have to use all your resources efficiently, which means labor is one of them. So you can only get to the curve if there's no unemployment. Alright, so if there's any unemployment, you're inside the curve. And so the production alternatives don't change, like this line doesn't change. So unemployment would just take you in the curve, but you wouldn't have any changes in the curve if you had less unemployment. You would just move towards the curve. And if you were on the curve, you would have 100% employment.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so unemployment is a little tricky, but it's just, if you think of it as one of the resources for production, then the only way you can achieve full production is to have no unemployment. And so that's kind of that concept there. So part C is what happens if a new technological improvement. A new technology improves the efficiency of extracting copper from ore. So this is essentially a boost in technology. And so if there's a technological advance, that's going to, by default, make the production process more productive. So that's going to increase the production possibilities curve. It's going to shift to the right and increase. Okay, and then D, what if a devastating earthquake destroys numerous production facilities? And so that actually is going to decrease the curve because we've lost the potential of producing more. And so if we lose the actual production facilities, that would decrease or shift the curve in. So that would represent the PBC, or the production possibilities curve, would decrease or shift left. Okay, so number 4, we're going to look at an actual graphical example of doing the production possibilities curve. Everybody okay so far? If there's any questions, just let me know. Okay, number 4. So this is an example of the production possibilities curve. So here below is the production possibilities curve for consumer goods, which are automobiles and capital goods. So this is automobiles and forklifts. Okay, and this table lists the production alternatives that the economy can achieve. So point A is they can produce 0 autos and 40 forklifts. Point B, 2 autos and 20 forklifts, and so these are all the combinations. And the other extreme is if they produce only automobiles, they can do 8 and no forklifts. Alright, so those are the production alternatives. And part A in this example is to show these graphically. So I did this in Excel, and I put my Excel file you can see. So when you do I type an example like this on a homework assignment or exam, etc. You're welcome either to just draw it on a piece of paper if that's easier, or if you want to do it in Excel, then you can use my examples as kind of a template. And so you don't have to do it in Excel, but I did it there because it's easier to show via the video. But it might be easier for you just to kind of do it by hand with a ruler and do it like that. So it's up to you when you do your own homework assignments for these types. If you want to do it in Excel, you can, or you can draw it with just a pen or pencil, on like graphing paper or whatever is best for getting your homework assignment done. Okay, but under the study guide for chapter, or just under the study guides, I put my Excel work for this one if you want to see it, if you like doing it in Excel. So this is here. Under study guides examples, chapter 1. And so this is question 4 that we're looking at now, and you can see that I put in all the points from the problem, where these are the different points. So point A is 0 autos and 40 forklifts. Point B is 2 autos and 30 forklifts, and you can just tell Excel to plot the points. You can make a little graph like this. Okay, so that's what I put there in the study guide. And if you want to look at my Excel examples, you can use this for a template if you want to do your work in Excel. And if you're doing so and have any questions doing that, please let me know. But there's that. Okay, and then here's the graph there. I took a screen capper, copied and pasted the graph. And so this represents all these points up here in a linear graph. So from the table up there, here's points A, B, C, D, and E. And you can see it represents all the combinations of forklifts and autos that this country can produce. Okay, so everybody good on just producing the graph so far? All I really did is plot the points. And again, when you do this, if there's a homework assignment for this type, you can do it in Excel like I did it, or you're also, if it's easier for you, you're welcome just to kind of draw your graph on a piece of paper if that's whatever is easier to get your homework done. Okay, point C, if the economy is at point C, what is the cost of 2 more automobiles? So if we're at point C, right there, you can see that if they want to gain 2 more autos, which is essentially going to point D, so if they want to gain 2 more autos, they have to give up some forklifts. It looks like they have to give up 10 forklifts. So going from point C to point D, right, you gain 2 autos, but you give up or you lose 10 forklifts. So the opportunity cost of 2 more autos is giving up 10 forklifts. Okay, but if you go the other way, if you want to produce more forklifts instead, which is essentially going from point C to point B, going from here to here. So to produce those 10 extra forklifts, you have to give up production in some automobiles, and you can see that you have to give up 2 automobiles. So to produce 10 more forklifts, you have to give up 2 automobiles. Okay, so if you understand that concept of going from different points on the curve, then you understand the opportunity cost concept in terms of what the country must give up to produce more of one particular good. Okay, point C, question C. If the economy characterized by this production cost for this table and curve were producing 4 autos and 15 forklifts, what could you conclude about the use of its available resources? So if we just kind of look at where's the point that's 4 autos and 15 forklifts, that's somewhere right there. And so you can clearly see that that would be under or inside the curve. And so something, either one or more of the resources will not used efficiently. We could have unemployment. We could have some other resource being used inefficiently, but we're not using the economy's resources efficiently. And so that's what that represents. So if we're inside the curve, the economy would be using one or more of its resources inefficiently. That could be unemployment. That could be something else. But if the resources aren't used to full potential, then that represents a point inside the curve. Okay, last part for this one, part D. What would production of a point outside the curve indicate? Alright, so at the current situation, remember we saw that in the graph. So unless there's a change, Right now, anything beyond this curve is unattainable. Yeah, but there are some factors which could lead us to essentially economic growth. And so with some circumstances changes that would allow the economy to attain such a level of production beyond the current CPC. So I just listed a few things, but you can probably think of more. So the economy can attain a level of production beyond the current CPC if there is some kind of technological advance or boost in technology, or we could have gains from trade. You could achieve a point beyond the curve by trading with another economy or country, and we're going to revisit this concept in Chapter 60. So those are just two things in which you could possibly achieve a point beyond the current CPC by having a boost in technology or by trading with another country. Okay, so that's kind of the basics on the production possibilities curve example. Are there any questions on what we cover here for this model? Okay, so the last example of Chapter 5 is on the budget line analysis. And so this one is a little bit longer, and then there's a homework assignment similar to this one. So make sure if you have any questions or pay special attention to this one, because this is essentially the homework problem for Chapter 1 is a problem similar to this one. Okay, so I'm gonna pour some more coffee in my cup. Give me like 30 seconds, and we'll do number 5 here. Okay, so let's do number 5 on an example of the budget line problem. So suppose you won $15 on a lotto ticket at the local 7-Eleven and decide to spend the winnings on candy bars and bags of peanuts. Okay, and so the price of candy bars is 75 cents, and the price of peanuts is $1.50. Okay, and so what this represents here is just a simple general equation of the budget line. Right, so we have two goods, X and Y. In this case, we have candy bars and peanuts. And so this budget line represents that in the form of prices and income. So PX is the price of good X. PY is the price of good Y. And then M is your income or your budget. So this is the general equation. You can use this to represent the different goods for any example. So basically we're saying that to spend all your budget, you have to spend it between the two goods. So what you spend on good X, which is the price of good X, times how much you buy. Plus what you spend on good Y, which is the price of good Y, times how much you buy of Y. If you spend all your money, then what you spend on the two types will spend all of your income or exhaust your budget. Okay, so we're saying that to spend all your budget, you have to spend all your money on either X or Y or some combination of both. Okay, so for the purpose of this example, let's just make good X candy bars and good Y peanuts, and then you can simply represent the information in the word problem and the general equation. So the price of good X is 75 cents, right? So PX is 75. The price of good Y is $1.50 for 1.5, and then your income is $15. Okay, so do we see how we use the general equation to get this equation for this example for peanuts and candy bars? Okay, great. Alright, so part A is to construct a table showing the alternative combinations of the two products that are available. So you got candy bars and you got peanuts, and your income is $15. So what I did here is just listed a number of combinations in which I can buy some candy bar and some peanuts, which would total $15. Okay, so if you plug in different numbers into here, these are the different combinations which would give you $15. So for example, you could buy, if you buy 20 candy bars and no peanuts, that's $15. If you buy 18 candy bars and one bag of peanuts, that's $15. And all the way along, it's the same trade-off of opportunity cost. Or if you wanted to buy all peanuts, you could buy no candy bars and all peanuts. You could buy 10 bags of peanuts, and that would again cost $15. So these are all the combinations, or pretty much all the combinations that give you $15, where you have different consumption points of peanuts and candy bars. Okay, and so again, I did this one in Excel, and you can look at my example in Excel if you want to do it like that. So if you go back to the Excel example here, and so the second one is for question 5, which you're doing now. And so what I did for this one is I just wrote a simple formula, which you're welcome to use as a template. And so what this is just what I'm trying to get things to equal 15 on the budget line. So this is essentially PX plus PYY equals 15. Alright, so I just told Excel to equal the budget line. I put in this equation. Okay, so 75 times what I buy of X plus 1.5 times what I buy of Y. And then if I can find all the combinations that give me 15, those are points on the budget line. Okay, so you can see that, and you can do some trial and error, but it's a linear relationship. It's always the same trade-off here. So 20 candy bars and 0 peanuts gives us 15. 18 candy bars and 1 bag of peanuts gives us 15. And so you can look at the simple equation, but if you write the equation in Excel, you can apply it such that all the different combinations are the ones that give you 15. So all these combinations here are going to be on the budget line. Okay, and again, when you do your homework assignment, you're welcome to use my Excel template and do it in Excel. Or if it's easier for you, you can just do it on a piece of paper or drafting paper. But let me know if you have any questions when we go through this. But this is the first part, just making a chart of all the combinations that give us our budget line. Okay, then part B is first plot the data in your table as a budget line in the graph. So this all you're doing is putting all these points and drawing a straight line through them. So you can either plot these points on graphing paper and just show that graph by hand, or if you put the points in Excel, you can just tell Excel to make a little graph. And so if I plot all those points, that's our budget line, right? So here's 20 and 1, or 20 and 0. Here's 10 and 0, and then all these points over here, if you just make a simple graph showing all those combinations, that's essentially your budget line. And so these are all the combinations of peanuts and candy bars that represent exhausting your budget. So that's your budget line there. And peanuts is all the points on the y-axis and candy bars on the x-axis. And so there's the graph there that I made in Excel and then took a screen cap. And so there's the budget line for this example. Okay, then the next part is what is the slope of this budget line. So this is the trade-off or rate of trade-off between the price of candy bars and the price of peanuts. Okay, so to calculate the slope, which is just like rise over run, you can use this simple equation. It's basically negative the price ratio, so it's negative px over py. So all you have to do is plug in the prices, and that gives you your slope. So the price of good X is 75 cents. The price of good Y is $1.50. And so that gives us a slope of negative 1/2. Okay, so next part is what are the opportunity costs? So what's the opportunity cost of one more candy bar? And then also what's the opportunity cost of one more bag of peanuts? So if you look at the table, okay, you can see that like what you give up to get more of the other good. So every time you get a bag of peanuts, you have to give up two candy bars. All right, so see anywhere on the table, if you want peanuts, you have to give up 2 candy bars. And look at the other way. Every time you gain 2 candy bars, you give up 1 bag of peanuts. So that represents the opportunity cost in terms of what you give up. If you want to buy more of one good, you have to give up that same rate for the other. Okay, so right, every time you gain 2 candy bars, you lose a bag of peanuts. Okay, so in terms of just a 1-to-1, if you just divide both sides by 2, that means that every time you gain a candy bar, you give up half a bag of peanuts. Okay, and also every time you gain a bag of peanuts, you give up 2 candy bars, so that's the opportunity cost of peanuts. Okay, so we simply define the opportunity cost of candy bars as negative 1/2 bag of peanuts. And the opportunity cost of peanuts is negative 2 candy bars. So that's what you give up to gain more of one good. This is the rate that you give up of the other, which is exactly the opportunity cost. Okay, and then the last part in part B is, do these opportunity costs rise or remain constant as each additional unit of the product is produced or purchased? So you can see that if the budget line is linear, and then each time you gain more of one good, you give up the same rate. Right? So the rate of trade-off is always the same, or the opportunity cost is always the same. So no matter where you are, every time you want more candy bars, you always give up the same rate, and every time you want more peanuts, you always give up the same rate, and so therefore it's constant. Which means that these opportunity costs remain constant as each additional unit of the product is purchased. Okay, and then part C, this is a change in income, I believe. So let's suppose that you won $30 on your lotto ticket, not 15. So she'll have a $30 budget line in your diagram. And why would this budget line be preferable to the old one? Well, this is essentially an increase in income, which is going to shift out the budget line. Okay, so instead of that, it's going to be 0.75x plus 1.5y equals 30, because we have the income is not 15, it's 30 now. So the combinations we can purchase are shifted out because we have a higher income or a higher budget. All right, and so with the same prices, these are the combinations which would exhaust the $30. And you can do the same analysis or the same table you did in the first part, except now the income is 30. So these are all the combinations that give us $30 of budget. All right, so I did that here, and again, the formula is the same and the equation is the same, except income is now 30, not 15. Okay, so if you bought all candy bars, you can buy 40 with no peanuts. If you bought all peanuts now, you can buy 20 bags of peanuts and no candy, and then these combinations in between represent all the combinations of candy bars and peanuts you could buy with now the $30 budget, and then the new budget line is here in this graph, the green graph here. So you should be able to see that the intercepts are higher for both. So now the intercept for peanuts is not 10, it's 20. And the intercept for candy bars is not 20, it's now 40. So our income doubled, which means that our consumption opportunities have doubled as well. And we can obtain much higher combinations of peanuts and candy bars. Okay, so here's that new budget line with the increase in income from 15 to 30. And the last part is, why would this budget line be preferable to the old one? And so this is pretty self-explanatory, but the consumer, the individual can buy more bulk goods, which is obviously preferable. So this budget line would be preferable to the old one because the individual can consume twice as many candy bars and twice as many bags of peanuts at the same prices, respectively. So with the new budget, they can consume more bulk goods. Okay, so questions on the budget line example? Because there's going to be there's a homework assignment question on this side. So any questions on what we did here with the budget lines? Okay, so I think we went through the study guide for chapter 1. So let me just show you guys the homework question for chapter 1. And then chapter 2 is pretty short, so we should, there's only a few things in there. Okay, so if you go down to the homework assignments on Blackboard, and you click on the homework for chapter 1, okay, so there's just one question for chapter 1, which is a budget line question like we just went through. And so this is the homework chapter 1. So you have another example, and you have a budget of 120, and you're going to spend all your income on 2 goods, which are whiskey and pancake mix. The price of whiskey is $40 a bottle, and the price of pancake mix is $10 a box. And then you'll do some similar analysis. Okay, so part A is you're going to make a table showing all the combinations that give you your budget line. All right, and then part B is you're going to plot the budget line, or draw the budget line, and then calculate the opportunity cost. Part C is you're going to have an increase, there's a change in income. Okay, so the budget line will shift. And then part D, we didn't do this in the other example, but I think you'll get the idea that this is when one of the prices changes. Okay, so part D is one of the prices, in this case the price of pancake mix changes. It goes from 10 to 20. All right, and so just put the new price in your general equation for the budget line, and that's going to change the budget line and kind of kink it. And so that'll change the slope, but you should get the idea that all you have to do is put the new price in the general equation for the budget line, and you should be able to get the answer for part D. Okay, and again, you're welcome to do your work in Excel and use my example that I put on Blackboard as a template, or you're welcome to use just graphing paper or kind of draw it with a ruler with pen and pencil. So whatever is your best method of doing the homework is fine with me. Any questions on what I want you guys to do for the chapter 1 homework? Okay, and again, the chapter 1 homework, we still have a few more things to do, but the chapter 1 homework or the chapter 1 problem is due in a week next Wednesday. And you want to put your homework here under discussion, the chapter 1 homework. Alright, so all you have to do is create a thread and just attach your answer sheet or your homework assignment to the thread. And that's where you put the chapter 1 homework when you finish that. Okay, so there's just a few concepts and problem I want to cover in chapter 2. And so we'll do that for the remainder of class. Alright, everybody good so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so if you go to study guides and you open up the chapter 2 study guide, okay, so there's just a few things I want to cover in chapter 2, and one key problem, which is, and you have one more homework problem for chapter 2. So this is chapter 2 on the market system and the circular flow. So I'm going to cover a few things in this chapter. So first, let me just show you the circular flow model on slide 18 in the chapter 2 PowerPoint. So in the PowerPoint section, let me just open up the chapter 2 PowerPoint for this one. Alright, so slide 18 shows the circular flow model. And so this, you won't really be tested on this, and there won't be a homework assignment on this either, but if you want to read more about it, it's in chapter 2, and this is kind of something that always comes up in when you start talking about economics is this circular flow diagram. And so this essentially shows how households and businesses are interlinked in the market system. And you can kind of see the arrows in which this flow chart is connected. So households basically sell their resources and they buy products from the business market. So the households send man, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability to the resource market. And businesses buy that and they use that to produce goods and services in the product market. And then households buy goods and services from the product market. So that's how that flow goes. And then the outside one, so households, they buy goods and services in the product market, and then that money goes, the expenditures, the revenue goes to the businesses, and they use some of that money for their costs, in which they buy in the resource market, and then the consumers get that revenue for wages and other services they sell in the resource market. So the circular flow model, the circular flow system shows how households and businesses are interconnected in the market system. Okay, and if you want more on that little concept, there's a nice little 10-minute or 5-minute video or so on the circular flow model here. So if you want to look at that, that'll explain a little more detail on the circular flow model, if that interests you. Okay, so the next section here is on the scarce resources. So the four main types of resources that we categorize in just introductory economics of these four. All right, so for now we'll categorize resources as land, labor, capital, or entrepreneurial ability. So land is just the physical land, the price of that physical land. Okay, labor is the cost of labor hours that go into the production process. Okay, capital is all of the other things that go into the cost of production. So this is things like infrastructure, buildings, computers, machinery. So any kind of physical capital that goes into this capital, and that's all the other goods and services that go into a business. And so technology, actual office buildings and stuff like that. Okay, and there's also the entrepreneurial ability, and so this is the price paid to the individuals in the business that innovate and take risks. So this entrepreneurial ability, this factor of production, this resource for business. So this is where the individual, the firm takes risks, takes initiatives, innovates any kind of innovation or technological investments, decision making and risk taking. So there's also a resource price on that. So that goes into this category. Okay, and then the last main concept or key concept in chapter 2 is on kind of an intro to revenue, cost, and profit, or just a simple definition of profit. And so profit, just in general terms, is how much you pay, or the revenue the firm receives minus the cost of production. So just revenue or profit is revenue minus cost, or total revenue minus total cost. Okay, and then so there's a few optional videos that you can look at. The first one is on different economic systems. The second one shows you kind of it gives you a map or a heat map of all the countries in the world and how they're categorized by different economic systems. So that's interesting if you want to look at that. And the last one is more on the circular flow model. So take a look at those videos or those web links if you get a chance. Okay, then I just have one example on kind of calculating profit on revenue, cost, and profit for chapter 2. And then there'll be a homework question on this type. So let's go through this one. All right, so with current technology, let's suppose a firm is producing 400 loaves of banana bread daily, and let's assume the least cost combination of resources in producing those loaves is 5 units of labor, 7 units of land, 2 units of capital, and then 1 unit of entrepreneurial ability. And the prices of those resources, respectively, are 40, 60, 60, and 20. Okay, if the firm can sell these 400 loaves of banana bread at $2 per unit or per loaf, what is its total revenue, its total cost, and its profit or loss? All right, so let's start with total revenue. Okay, so we can define total revenue as just, this is the revenue the firm makes. So if we just have one good, like we do here, then the revenue the firm or business makes is how many of those units they sell, times the market price of that good. So we have a price of banana bread and we sell a certain amount. So the revenue the firm makes is essentially the price of that good times how many they sell. So in a one good business, total revenue is just price times quantity. Alright, so the price of banana bread is $2 and we sell 400. Okay, so that gives us a total revenue daily of $800. Right, so 2 times 400 is 800 for revenue. Okay, so that's the revenue they take in, but there's also a cost of the business, in particular the price they have to pay for all those resources they're using. So total cost, TC, is you just sum up the cost of all the resources together. Okay, so we have resource cost 1, which is the cost of labor. And we have the resource cost 2, which is the cost of land. And then resource cost 3, which is the cost of capital. And then the last resource cost 4, which is the cost the firm has to pay for entrepreneurial ability. And to add up all these costs, just put in the price you had to pay for those goods or those resources, and then how much you use. Right? So for labor, alright, so we need 5 units. And each unit costs $40. So for labor, 5 times 40 goes here. Okay, for land, we need 7 units. And each unit costs 60, so 7 times 60 for the cost of the total cost of land. Okay, then for capital, we need 2 units of capital at a price of 60. And for entrepreneurial ability, we need 1 unit at a price of 20. Okay, so if you add up all these costs together, then the total cost this business has to pay should come out to $760. Okay, so once you have the revenue and the cost, then profit is easy. And so you know that profit in this little symbol, the pie symbol, that's the general symbol for profit in microeconomics. So if you see the pie, that just means profit. And so profit, remember, is just revenue minus cost, or total revenue of the firm minus total cost. So we already got those. And our profit is 800 minus 760, which gives the firm a profit of $40. Okay, the last part here, will this firm continue to produce banana bread? And if this firm's situation is typical for other makers of banana bread, will resources flow toward or away from this bakery good? So since they're making a profit, if they're making that daily profit, they're going to keep producing at a positive profit. And resources are going to flow towards this good because other businesses or bakery products that are making less money or taking a loss will kind of shift resources to the good that's making a profit, which in this case is banana bread. Yeah, so this firm will continue to produce banana bread, and resources will flow toward this bakery good from other goods and services on the margin. All right, so kind of a nice little example of how to sum up the revenue and cost for a simple one good business. Any questions on what we did here for this one, this example? Okay, great. So let me show you the homework assignment for chapter 2. So that is under homework assignments. Okay, so here you go, just one homework assignment for chapter 2, which is similar to the one we just did as an example. So another example of calculating profit from revenue and cost. So you have a In-N-Out Burger producing 500 burgers, and the least cost combination of resources of producing those is 10 units of labor, and these are all the units of land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial ability, and then the prices here. Okay, then the firm's going to sell 500 burgers daily, and those cost $2 per unit. All right, so all you're going to do here is calculate revenue, cost, and profit, like we did in the previous example. And then, assuming that if they're making a profit, then resources will go toward the good, and they'll continue to make it. So it's a similar example to what we just did in the banana bread example. Okay, so questions on what I want you guys to do for the chapter 2 homework? Not too bad. Okay, and then the chapter 2 homework assignment goes here for chapter 2, and you just put that in the chapter 2 discussion, and post your answer sheet for chapter 2. Okay, so again, if you can put your homework assignments as a Word document or a PDF, that's the easiest for me to see, but let me know if you have any problems using a PDF or a Word document. Okay, so we're just about done with what I wanted to cover for today, and I think we're right at the time. Let me see what time it is. Okay, so just to get us wrapped up, so the Chapter 1 homework and the Chapter 2 homework are both due in a week next Wednesday. And so just post those to the discussion forums. And if you have any questions when you're doing the homework, you can send me an email and I can help you with those or any Excel problems, things like that. So please let me know if you have questions or need help with the homework. But those are due in a week in their discussion forum. And after the due date, I'll post my solutions. And then the plan is for next week. We'll cover Chapter 3, which is supply and demand, and then I'll give you some homework assignments for supply and demand, Chapter 3. And then I'll put today's WebEx lecture or video up on my YouTube page. You can see that if you need to refer to any of the examples or anything like that. Okay, so any more questions before we finish up for the evening? Okay, wait, let's see. So someone I think posted privately about office hours. So office hours, so I don't have specific office hours, and I guess I really haven't had office hours since we did classes remotely. But for office hours, you can email me, and if you want, if you need like additional help, person to person, I can set up a different WebEx meeting. So if you need office hours or additional help, send me an email, and then we'll go from there. But I'm happy to set up like a separate one-on-one WebEx meeting or Zoom meeting. And so what we'll do that office hours by request, but please request office hours if you need additional help. So okay, you're welcome. Okay, so office hours by request, but I'm happy to set up a separate one-on-one Zoom or WebEx meeting. Okay, so if there's nothing else, I think that's what I have for today. So make sure you get chapters 1 and 2 homework due by next week, and let me know if you have questions on that. But I think that's all I have for today, so you can go ahead and log off unless you have additional questions. And everyone have a good night and stay safe. And I'll see you next week via WebEx at the same time. So thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.